Hello friends, welcome along to the very first episode of Music Gaga. My name is Ben Hockings and I am your one and only host for this show. Listen, I just want to talk to you about a few things, obviously. This is a show about music, as you can tell. Music Gaga, I got that name from a little bit from Queen. Obviously Freddie and the band are I'm a big supporter of theirs, big fan of Queen's. The term Gaga obviously comes from their song Radio Gaga, which I guess kind of means, radio, or in this case music Gaga, music talk, music goss, just music, everything to do with music. So that's what the show is about, everything to do with music. So as you can tell, I'm not the prototypical kind of music person by the looks of me. I'm a 41-year-old dad of 3 boys, married to a beautiful wife, Courtney. But music has, I think like many of us, has run a very strong thread through my life. And as I get older, I'm discovering that rather than it falling out of my life further as I thought it might do, it's actually becoming more and more important to me. And what I do every day. So I've started this channel just to really, I can talk about history of music, why it's so important in our lives, its direction, obviously its current state in this digital world. I have a particular passion to do with artists and singer-songwriter copyright issues and their rights and royalty rates and that kind of thing. And I'll discuss that at some point, or probably quite a lot actually through this series of shows. But first of all, let me indulge myself. Just as the first episode, I would like to introduce myself and my background and why I think I've got some sort of offer to make towards music. I know there's millions of channels out there devoted to music, but hopefully this one will be a little bit different in what we discuss and in terms of history and the future. So personally, I have 3 passions in my life. Those who know me might think that my first passion is running. Running is definitely one of my top 3, but I would have to say running is probably my 3rd in that rank. Number 2 is bodyboarding, which is a bit of an odd combination, I know, and probably not a really common answer you would get from a top 3 passion, but I've loved bodyboarding and surfing and the waves and the ocean ever since I was in high school in WA in Western Australia, and I kind of came across it by accident. That'll be a funny story one day for this show, but ever since the 90s, I followed bodyboarding in its infancy in Australia, right up to now. So I love getting out in the water. I just love everything about being in the waves, and I'm not an awesome bodyboarder, but I'm not too bad. So I get out when I can. Obviously now with a family, it's not as easy to get out as it used to be, but you got to sort of put your priorities straight, and I get out when I can. So bodyboarding is number 2, and as you can tell, my number one passion in my life is actually music. Like I said before, when I was younger, it was obviously, in my life quite a lot. And when I was younger, I kind of thought, as I get older, I'll become more engrossed in adult life, and music will kind of fall off the importance list. But and I kind of, felt that it was in a way, but only because I was forcing it to as I was sort of growing up in my 20s and 30s. My taste, is around the 70s to 90s. That's my era. But as I got older, I kind of, the passion, inside and the love of it, and the history of music really grew stronger into my late 30s. And in the end, I just didn't try and fight it anymore. I really embraced, the kind of music that I do love, and I'm not, ashamed to tell anyone, about the kind of music I do like. Having said that, I embrace, all kinds. My collection ranges from, I've got Marilyn Manson, cassette tapes to Mariah Carey, and alternative stuff like Offspring and that kind of thing. So a bit mainstream, I guess. Not really much into the fringes, of music, but I think for this show, we'll just sort of focus on that kind of thing, on the main music. So how it started, my love for music, and I think it's one of those things where when you find you've got a love in your life or a passion in your life, you can actually remember the first time that you experienced that, the emotions that are attached to that passion. And for me, I never really thought about it too much until recently, even though I've always had this memory of music. My first time it actually struck me was back in the probably mid-80s, when I was not even, maybe 7 or 8 years old, around there somewhere. And we lived in Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. And I can recall one night as a young fella, we'd all gone, I'd gone to bed, my brother Peter had gone to bed, and somehow I'd managed to snaffle my brother's Walkman. He had a silver Walkman. I can't recall what brand it was, but it was one of those standard silver Walkmans you see around back in the day. And I just remember switching on the radio, and it had that little the hi-fi option button on the top of the Walkman, and I remember putting that on, and I was tuning the radio, just trying to find stations. Because in Moresby, it's not known for its great reception back then, so you'd pick up signals from radio stations, obviously in Australia, and really strong ones from around the world. Excuse me. And this particular night, the very first song that came in over the headphones, because I was trying to be very quiet. I was under my sheets, head underneath the sheets, and I had the headphones on. The song that I tuned into was "We Built This City," and by Starship. Pardon me. And I remember listening to this song in stereo, and it was just it was like a bit of romance. It wasn't. It wasn't a great signal. It was, kind of crackly a little bit, but just felt so far away, And then listened to the song, and the song finished, and this American voice, it might have been in Australia, I'm not quite sure, but it was an American DJ, came on, and he was speaking, but it was just the thought that I was listening to something from so far away, And as a kid, this is, obviously back long before the internet days, the world was so big back then, and to think that I was listening to something that was coming from a different country was, at the time it wasn't, I didn't think this is going to be with me forever, but it just stood out in my brain that was the song, and ever since then, obviously, that song's been a big favourite of mine, probably for that reason, I'm not quite sure, but that kind of started my love for music. I really fell in love with the song itself and where it came from and what it meant, so that was probably the very first beginning of my awareness and love for music. From there, it was always there, music, like everyone else, we hear it over the radio, like it's in the shopping centres, you've got it in your car, that kind of thing. I never really thought to myself that I'm going to love it, forever. I just sort of embraced it, I mean, my love for it at the time. And you go through high school, and I went through this like early 90s, so I was listening to like Roxette, and I was with Mariah Carey and all those kinds of people, and the big artists of the 90s like Oasis and Alanis and all them. Then I sort of grew up, and I got married and all that, and I didn't really listen to that much music. I kind of lost interest in the top 40, and really only sort of listened to the really big songs, I guess, in the early 2000s. It wasn't really until I received the Live Aid 85 box set DVDs as a Christmas present one year, probably in the mid to late 2000s, and I just watched that box set. It's 10 hours of music or something like that. So and it just brought back. I mean, I wasn't there obviously. I was too young to remember the television at the time, but just brought back memories of a different world back then, a different life, and how powerful and well loved those songs still were 20 years later. And initially I was I tried to not really hide it, but I didn't really let on that I was sort of starting to get back into my dire straits again, and my don't Simple Minds, that don't you forget about me, that kind of and that really evoked some really strong emotions in me. And from then, I kind of just went with it, and then the last 10 years, I've kind of just been on a bit of a concert, I say binge, but, if artists came to town, I loved, obviously retro stuff is pretty big at the moment. We just had Queen tour, all that kind of thing, so I don't miss a chance now to go along, if I can. So to me now, it's more important than it's ever been, and I think with the way the world's evolving right now with technology and everything's online, and we are moving into a different era of music, and it's changing. It's going to change. That's inevitable. But I don't know. Maybe part of me sort of thinks this is the simple life. Like back then it was easy. It was not complicated. Whereas now there's so much fighting for YouTube views, and there's fighting on artists not being paid enough money, which I don't think they are, but that's another story for another episode. It's a changing landscape, and I just want to do my bit with this show to obviously talk to you about memories and anecdotes and the industry as it stands now, but also probably hopefully interview people involved in the industry. So we've got some record stores around nearby that I would love to talk to one-on-one about the state of the industry. Hopefully one day we'll get to meet some people who are more connected with the industry, but I just think it's important now that we keep hold of that artistry and the ingenuity that was going on 10, 20, 30 years ago, to make sure we don't lose sight of where we've all come from with music. Especially as artists of yesteryear, they get older and they pass away. Obviously, I just want to make sure personally that we just don't forget. I think it's very important. So, I said before, my taste is pretty encompassing. Like, I don't dislike any kind of music. Obviously, I can't listen to all kinds of music. I've got my collection. I don't believe in streaming. I really think that physical purchases, I've got books, I've got vinyl, I've got cassette tapes from when I was growing up, CDs, etc. I've been exposed to a lot of kinds of music, and weirdly enough, it's my dad who I've got to thank for a lot of that. My dad is not a musical kind of person. He'd probably tell you that pretty straight down the line, but he I don't know, he accidentally bought me things that led me on this path. So he bought me the Dire Straits Money for Nothing cassette tape. We did a road trip once from Brisbane to Cairns in Queensland, and he bought a cassette tape to listen to for me, and it was the Dire Straits one, which Dire Straits, my favourite song in the entire world is Telegraph Road, off that album. I would never have picked it in a million years. He bought me the Prince, the hits, the B-sides, 3 CD set, when I didn't even really like Prince. This is back in the early 90s. I didn't sort of listen to Prince at all, and he's bought me these 3 CDs, and I really saw what Prince was about. I've got his autobiography here, The Beautiful Ones, to read still. Once you get to know those artists and how creative they were, what they accomplished, and often what was their short lifespan, it's just amazing. And I think we need to open our eyes to what they've achieved. So my dad was kind of weirdly pivotal in helping my music taste develop. So like I said before, this channel, The Music Gaga, we're going to talk about all things music. I'm happy to take requests on topics, especially these days with big tech and their dominance over the world in many different areas and industries is a big talking point, and how singer-songwriters, independent labels, that kind of thing all get their fair share, because the industry is really, revenue has really dried up in the last 20 years. So we just want to sort of put our finger on the pulse and see what the future might hold for the industry. So that's basically it. once I get some more ideas together, I'm hopefully going to post some more videos on this channel. I really think we've got a lot to explore, to talk about. Music is such a massive thing. How is it important in your life? And there's things like music is a bridge between cultures, much the way that sport is. It's kind of common language. So I love to talk about international music if I have the chance. So yeah, there's a lot to do with this channel, and I'm looking forward to bringing it all together and having some nice presentations. I'll have a bit of a nicer setup at some stage. It's a bit basic, I just pulled my old high-speed dubbing cassette twin tape deck player out of the garage. Some cassette tapes. I've got a pretty massive CD collection, and the Walkman here actually still has the Money for Nothing cassette tape in here. I'll pull that out. Look at that. Money for Nothing. I wonder if she still plays. This is being rewound a lot, this cassette. A lot. I can't even tell you. So anyway, we're going to talk about old stuff, new stuff, what we can do to help save the industry. Because streaming, while it's a fair solution in some respects to the piracy situation 15 years ago, it's not going to be, by the looks of it, the answer for everyone in terms of how fair it is. So anyway, that's talk for another time. So until the next episode, I am Ben signing off, and this is the Music Gaga.